Creative teaching methods.
Do you ever have days when you feel you're flat out of creativity?
Do you ever wonder how you can make the same old lesson interesting?
Do you find yourself secretly admiring colleagues who seem to do the most imaginative things in class?
While you feel stuck in a rut.
If you're struggling to get creative, then today's discussion might be just for you.
Hello everyone. Welcome to Excellence in Teaching. I'm Toni Robinson.
And I'm Tim Carrigan.
Between us, we've spent a lot of years in the classroom. But if there's anything experience has taught us, it's that there's always more to learn about this crazy and wonderful profession called teaching.
This program is the result of a collaboration of veteran teachers, college professors, and educational researchers. We're here to share some of their findings, and hopefully our comments, discussions, and teacher interviews will give you some food for thought. You know, Toni, when we teach, no matter how inventive we are, our teaching can become routine.
I know, and sometimes we end up doing the same thing day in and day out, from the same old lesson plans to the same type of homework we assign. And after a while, our teaching just kind of becomes monotonous.
In this program, we'll provide some tips for becoming imaginative and say a few words about helping your students feel comfortable with creative approaches. Then we'll discuss a number of creative ideas you can put to use directly in your teaching.
Imagination is vital in teaching, but what if innovative thoughts just don't seem to flow?
They will. You've just got to find your well of creativity and tap into it.
Do you two have some kind of magic potion or something? I mean, I've been teaching for quite some time now, and everything I do just seems the same. I'd give anything for a bunch of fresh ideas.
Sorry, we don't have a magic potion, but we do have a few tips. We believe that you've all got lots of creativity.
Most teachers do, or they wouldn't be teachers. But we have to rediscover our creativity.
To get creative, try to think back on the days when you had an idea a minute. Was it when you first began teaching? Or was it when you took education courses in college? Or was it sometime earlier in your life? What was different back then? Well, for one thing, many of us were more willing to take risks.
Right. To be creative, you've got to be open to taking a gamble. After all, anytime you try something other than your usual lesson plan, it can perhaps fail.
And as a teacher, you probably have a routine that seems to work. So it's scary to do anything different.
We'll often tell students to take a chance and step out of the box. So it's time we take our own advice.
But sometimes that's hard to do.
It is.
Okay, let's assume you're ready to take a chance. Now, where can you go for ideas?
Try collaborating with your peers. Your colleagues can be an excellent resource for creative teaching methods.
Colleagues can provide incredibly offbeat, different activities. Every teacher has his or her favorite unusual lesson plan, and most teachers are happy to share their secrets. All you need to do is share a few of yours in return.
Another great way to get original ideas is through research. If you consult textbooks, reference guides, electronic resources, journal articles, and classroom materials, you can often find a wealth of information. You might even want to try the internet.
There are a number of popular books on innovative teaching techniques. You can go to your local university library to find these.
You can also contact your local professional organization for a list of resources.
I'm a foreign language teacher, and I called my local representatives for the State Organization of Foreign Language Teachers. I asked them about a book on games for the foreign language class. They recommended a text called Language Teaching Games by W.R. Lee. It's a fantastic book, and it has given me all kinds of ideas. I've already tried a number of new activities with my classes.
That's great!
And don't forget about today's wonder resource, the web.
I'm an English teacher. I've taught Romeo and Juliet the same way every year. I wanted to try something different, so I went online. I went into a chat room for teachers and shared my dilemma. I got at least 5 new suggestions for teaching Shakespeare. I'm really looking forward to trying one tomorrow in class.
Another source of creativity can be your students. If you show them the topic you intend to teach and ask them if they can come up with unusual ways to learn, you'll be amazed at their ideas.
Right, Toni. Students often have some seemingly crazy suggestions for activities, but it's incredible how innovative their thoughts can be. So don't hesitate to ask your students to help you be creative.
Keep a small notebook or journal on hand to record ideas or thoughts as they come to you. You never know when a marvelously creative impulse will just hit you.
Develop an interest in a variety of activities. Perhaps you can read a book or take a walk or see a movie. Focusing on other activities will restore your energy and spark creativity.
Work smarter, not harder. A stressful, hectic work schedule does not allow much time for creative thinking.
And finally, practice, practice, practice. You can't expect to fine-tune and improve your creative teaching techniques without practicing them.
Okay, we've talked about ways to rekindle that old creative flame. Now let's say a few words about developing a relaxed and accepting classroom environment.
You can't implement creative ideas with students unless they feel comfortable enough to try them.
I think there are some basic laws and algorithms that we need to teach in math or in science, but there's no one way to do things, and I think that's where children can be creative, and I think we can really encourage their creativity by allowing them to do things in their way and find out how they're solving problems, not tell them always exactly how to solve the problem.
I think any time that you bring in different methods to teach students, you're meeting the needs of more students. And by being creative, you're getting away from the normal, from what they usually do, and gives them an opportunity to explore things in many different ways.
Inspiring students to be creative is as important as being creative yourself. So be sure that your students understand that you value their creativity.
You can do this by getting to know your students as individuals.
Learn about their interests, their hobbies, families, and talents. Encourage your students to test their personal limits and seek out more than one answer to a problem.
Keep in mind that students will need time to experiment just as you do, so give them a wide variety of materials and assignments that involve several types of learning styles.
Try to create a positive environment for learning. Be accepting and open to your students' ideas. Your class will be more receptive to your innovative teaching techniques and strategies.
Get students to feel okay about questioning and taking risks. Let them know that they shouldn't be afraid of trying new and different learning activities.
Communicate your expectations to students regarding performance and attitude. Students should understand that they are responsible for learning, even though the activities are unusual and fun.
Let's now look at a few well-tested creative activities that you can try.
The creative teaching methods we're about to share are a small sample of the myriad of unusual approaches that exist. We'll try to choose examples that apply to most disciplines.
We'll discuss some great games, including activities that involve tactile, thematic, and team activities. Then we'll explore learning centers, student debates, and the use of journals, music, and videos in the classroom.
Classroom games are a wonderful way to teach and learn. Students of all ages get into the fun and they learn to interact as they acquire new information.
The first day of class is a great time to start with a creative bang. A getting to know you game can do the trick.
On the first day, teachers take roll and put students in assigned seats. They often present rules and expectations. They describe course content, grading, and so on.
If you normally take a full class hour to complete your first day comments, try spreading the comments over several days, devoting the first 15 minutes of each day to them.
And with the remainder of the time, why not try something really crazy?
After taking roll and saying a few things, announce the name game. Tell students it'll help them to get to know each other.
Here's how it works. Move all the chairs out of the way and have the class sit on the floor in a circle.
Start a clapping rhythm. The first person says his or her name. The second student does the same but must repeat the name of the preceding student. The third student must repeat the names of both of the previous two.
Continue in this way until you are done with the circle. The last student will have quite a job of remembering everyone. Then do the game again, changing the order of the students.
Here's another game. Have students line up in alphabetical order according to their first name. Then have them reorder themselves according to their last name. The next day, they can try it by birth date or by height.
Every time they line up, the student has to introduce the person to his or her left to the class. Before long, everyone will be acquainted.
Okay, Toni, aside from these getting to know you openers, what other creative ideas come to mind?
Well, in nearly every discipline, students must learn facts, dates, names, and a variety of factual information. So review games are an excellent way of reinforcing objective material.
Got a favorite TV game? You can take programs such as Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune and rework them to fit almost any lesson.
How about an old favorite, bingo? You can have students create the cards and questions for almost any game.
Right. Part of the fun is to have students make simple materials for the games you select.
And of course, this saves you a lot of prep time.
Right. And what about chalkboard relays to practice verb conjugation, spelling, or new math formulas?
Don't forget about popular board games such as Pictionary, which is my favorite by the way, Trivial Pursuit, Scrabble, or Battleship. They can be adapted to fit any curriculum.
Toni, one of my favorites is called Papers on the Wall. Have students write every review item on a 6 by 4 inch slip of paper in big bold letters with a marking pen. Tape the slips all over the room. There could be hundreds of them. Have students stroll the perimeter in pairs to music. Stop the music and give a clue. The pair that touches the right slip of paper first wins the point. Then start the music again.
There's a game I like called spinning wheels. You create 2 spinning wheels out of simple materials, such as popsicle sticks superglued to a washer and bolt on a wooden board. Number the slots on each wheel, 1 to 20 and 21 to 40.
I know this one. You give each student a number, right? Okay, then divide the class into 2 teams. Spin the 2 wheels and say it's number 6 on one and number 23 on the other. That means that student number 6 on one team competes against student number 23 on the other team, and they try to provide a correct answer to the question. Whoever answers first gets a point for his or her team.
How about a simpler one, like musical chairs?
Oh, Toni, I love that one. You know, some people think it's for younger students, but older students enjoy it just as much.
Here's how to adapt it for any review. Divide the class into 2 teams with everyone's name on the board. Have 1 less chair than students in the class. Play the music, stop the music, and let everyone sit and see who the odd person out is. Ask that person a review question. If he or she gets it right, it's 2 points for the team. If he or she gets it wrong, it's minus a point for the team. Unlike ordinary musical chairs, everyone stays in the game.
Do you know you can actually do a fun bowling game to review? Divide the class in 2 teams. Take empty plastic soda pop bottles and set up 2 sets of pins in a normal 10-pin triangle. A member of each team rolls the ball. If one player gets 4 pins down, her or his team gets to answer 4 review questions for a point each. If the other player gets 8 pins down, he or she gets to answer 8 review questions for the team. Bonus points are given for strikes.
Let's move on to bulletin boards. Let's say you've just spent a couple of days in science class discussing how fossils are made. Instead of giving students a typical pencil and paper test, why not stretch their imaginations? Have them get into small groups and create their own bulletin boards. Tell them that they're free to do whatever they want and use any of the media provided. The only rules are to show how fossils are made and, of course, to be creative.
If you're a history teacher, you can ask your students to create a bulletin board display on famous historical locations or people.
If you're a music teacher, you can have your students make a display on a board on the different musical instrument families.
Or how about a timeline on the history of music?
That's a great idea. Are you a foreign language teacher? Try having your students create word boards on specialized vocabulary, such as the family, foods, weather, or clothing.
The bulletin board concept opens the door to other hands-on artistic activities. Many students love to create with their hands, especially tactile learners.
Tired of traditional book reports in English? Have your students make dioramas or book jacket covers based on the book's content. Then have them present their projects to the class as they explain the book.
Doing a unit on dimensions and scaling? Have students create models out of popsicle sticks or toothpicks according to a design.
Looking for a real hands-on activity in Spanish? Well, let students build a piñata and take turns decorating it. They'll love the adventure and learn about Hispanic culture in the process.
If you're studying the periodic table of elements and their atomic structures, have your students make mobiles out of the atoms. They can build the mobiles out of wire coat hangers, depict the nucleus with an apple, and show the loss and gain of electrons with grapes and cherries.
Just think hands-on, and you'll come up with marvelous activities that will engage your students.
Let's take a look at another creative approach, teaching according to thematic units.
Introduce your next unit by explaining to the class that everything you will be doing for the next few weeks will somehow tie into a specific theme.
For example, if you're an English teacher, you might suggest that the theme is human trust and betrayal. You'll ask students to comment on this theme as they read King Lear, Heart of Darkness, and Death of a Salesman.
Or say you're a history teacher and you're about to teach the 1920s and 30s in the U.S. You might suggest that the main theme be from happiness to despair. And students will be expected to focus on this theme as they learn about that era.
Toni, let's move on to another innovative approach, team teaching and guest lectures.
If you work in a school where there's a strong emphasis on cross-curricular articulation, consider team teaching 1 or more classes.
Let's say you're a social studies teacher doing a unit on Mexico. Why not ask the music teacher at your school to present a lecture on Mexican music?
Then talk to the life sciences teacher about presenting a class on Mexican foods. Perhaps he or she is an expert in Mexican cooking.
Then go to the art teacher and see if he or she can give a presentation on Mexican artists. Perhaps the art teacher can talk about Diego Rivera, Frida Kahlo, and many other wonderful masters.
Perhaps your school's English teacher knows about Mexican poets and novelists. He or she could speak to your class.
After the guest visit, you could spend the next class period devising a creative way of reviewing the presentation. If the subject was Mexican art, see if students can create their own art piece in the style of a great artist.
If the subject was Mexican poetry, try to get students to write their own poems in a similar style.
Team teaching and guest lecturing applies to just about any discipline. If you teach a subject, you very likely know a colleague with expertise in an aspect of your content area.
Remember, of course, that sharing is a two-way street, so offer up your own time in return. Reciprocity is the key.
While we're on the subject of who's teaching the class, here's another creative idea. Have your students do the teaching for a day or two.
Just wait until you see the look on the faces of your students when you announce that they are the teachers.
The procedure is really quite simple. Take a chapter or unit, break it up into 6 or 7 distinct sections, either by page numbers or by subtopics.
Then put 3 or 4 students in each group. Announce that each group will have a certain period of time to prepare for teaching the lesson to everyone else.
Explain that they are free to present the information in any way they want, as long as the material is conveyed clearly and effectively.
They can choose to write a paper, act out the material in a skit, ask the class to participate, or whatever. Let them know this is their chance to be creative.
Create a high level of accountability and you'll be amazed at the results. Some students can really do a wonderful job of teaching.
You'll be impressed at the creative approaches they take to being teachers.
On to another innovation. With today's stress on getting students to write more, why not have your students keep a class journal?
I like the idea. You can allow students a few minutes at the end or the beginning of class to jot down their thoughts on the day, classes, friends, family, and personal feelings.
Let your students know that they will be expected to exchange journals randomly with other students 1 day a week.
This is a wonderful way of getting students to know each other and respond to each other's concerns.
Tell your students that they need to follow 2 guidelines in this activity.